TikTok, it's time to rock. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for dropping by. It's my pleasure to get together with you guys and introduce to you somebody that we've made contact with over about a month ago. He's all the way from Texas. So if you guys know anything about our channel, if you know anything about the music that we talk about on this channel, we are inspired by Texas blues. In particular, obviously Stevie Ray Vaughan got a big influence on what we've done here on this channel. We've talked about a lot of his albums. So anybody that comes from Texas is a good friend of the channel. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you guys. I'm going to drop him in here. Please, if you guys are watching a replay of this show, I'll have all his social media links attached to the stream, so you guys can go and check out what he's doing with his bands, his music, and just touch base with him. I promise, guys, I'm going to stop talking, but it's my pleasure to introduce to you guys all the way from Texas, Gregory Mitchell Wilson. And for this show, we're just going to call him Greg. Hey, brother. Good to meet you.
Doing good. How you doing?
Awesome, bro. Awesome, bro. Good to see you. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we were just touching base with each other in the green room before we went live. And one of the key things that we decided that is really, really good, and one of the positive things about social media is that it gives us an opportunity to touch base. I'm here in New Zealand. Greg's in Texas. Instagram gave us the platform for our channel here to touch base with Greg. I saw some of Greg's posts and I went, holy cow, this guy's the real deal. Found him on Spotify, I listened to his music and went, holy cow, this guy's even more the real deal. So, we had to book him on a show. He's managed to put some time aside to join us. I'm going to have some questions for him. He's going to talk to us. If you guys in the chat have any questions for Greg, please do. I can see some familiar faces in our chat. We've got Halen O'Hara joining us from Melbourne, Australia, Greg, and also John ZD351, another Australian, joining in the chat too. So they will be surely inspired by your music too. Greg, tell us about yourself, bro. Tell us what you're up to.
Well, nothing much, just playing music, working, living in this hot state right now, just rocking and rolling. That's all we're doing right now.
Yeah, awesome. So, obviously we'll get to talk about your music specifically, but you're a guitar player, you're a leader of a band, and you're a singer. So how did you get into music? Because one of the things that people like when they come to our channel and watch some of these shows, Greg, is they love to hear the story. They love to hear how you got involved in music and what were the influences and what pushed you into it. You want to share that with us, bro?
Yeah, here, let me turn off this fan real quick. It's kind of causing a little bit of a droning noise. But
cool.
So, it was probably back when I was in kindergarten, just riding to school in my dad's truck every day. And he had two CDs in there that I like to listen to a lot. One of them was Montgomery Gentry's My Town, and the other was Van Halen, Best of Both Worlds. So, that's where it really all started right there, was, hearing those Van Halen licks. And, by the age of 7, I can name all 3 singers in the band. That's just clicked and started going from there.
Wow. And look, that's a good foundation, Greg, to start you off on your musical journey, because, we've spoken about Van Halen a lot on this channel. And, I discovered Van Halen when I was about 12, 13, 14. And my worldview, my music, everything changed, when I first heard Eruption. And that's, I think for a lot of us, that's our defining song. So was there a defining song or a riff that converted you completely?
if I remember correctly, I'd always skip through all the songs until I'd get to Unchained, and then it was just that riff, which just got embedded into my brain as a kid.
The heavy stuff, the heavy one. Yeah. Look. For me personally, that was something that came to me a little bit later. I'll stick my hand up. I was the guy that was listening to "Dance the Night Away," "Woman in Love." Those were the songs that grabbed me initially, and then I sort of started getting into that. That the other stuff that Van Halen were doing. So were you inspired then to become a guitar player or a vocalist? Was that something either or were you going to do both?
No, I really had no intentions on singing. Honestly, I really sucked when I first started, and I don't think I'm that good in the first place. I'm by no means a singer, but it was all guitar. I mean, for the first 15 so years of my life, and then I really switched to a bunch of acoustic stuff and was listening to more slower like country and blues, and had all these ideas in my head, and I started writing notes and lyrics and everything, and just started singing it. And then one day it just clicked. Just downhill from there.
Yeah. Well. I just want to paint a picture with you, and we touched a little bit about it in the green room, ladies and gentlemen, before we went live. So I've got this view, this impression of Texas halfway around the world. Of obviously the Lone Star State, this big place, cattle and all this, but from a music perspective, the country stuff, which I love, which is really, really important because, the rock and roll that we listen to is inspired so much by it. Look at Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed and Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones. Clearly influenced by, that authenticity of country music. And then obviously you've got the black guys that came through playing blues and Stevie Ray Vaughan, who became like supremely popular, classified as a Texas blues. And so you've got this thing now, Chris. Greg, of a genre all by itself. Texas blues. So that's got to be in you, bro. It's got to be part of your DNA.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I remember hearing Stevie Ray Vaughan back when I was, like 10 years old on the radio all the time, or, on a CD or something like that. But he's definitely been a really, really big influence. Most of my blues influence does come from more of the Delta, from, spanning from my Mississippi over to Georgia. But Stevie Ray Vaughan he's up there, man. He's an unbelievable player.
Yeah. And look, the Delta Blues guys clearly are the real deal, aren't they? I just picked up another album, the King of the Delta Blues by Robert Johnson. These guys are important. And what's really interesting is that you read articles about Clapton or Keith Richards, and they talk about this guy, Robert Johnson. That's one of the reasons why I like these guys too, and a lot of these other American guys like Dwayne Allman, for example, and the Allman Brothers, because they talk about these black guys from the blues, from the Delta. They say go and listen to these guys. We're just a part of that pie.
Yeah, I mean, Southern rock. I mean, it's really a redundant subgenre because, rock and roll was born in the South with Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters and all that. And Keith Richards is on record, saying all of his influence is Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson. I mean, it's born and raised down here. It's in the blood, but, it spread north and it spread west to Pasadena. I mean, a lot of good stuff was coming out of LA and Pasadena back in the late 70s and 80s. And then, down here you had the whole Allman Brothers vibe going on and Skinner, and it's just a lot of good music.
Yeah. I'm just going to do a quick shout out, mate. We've got Holly Lewis in the chat. She's just saying that she can't watch the show, that she's going to come back and watch the replay of the show. She's a good friend of the channel. We have Steve 012 Schneider in the chat. He's from Washington State, another good friend of the channel, and Andy Carson from Chattanooga, Tennessee, joining us. So fantastic, guys. We really appreciate you hanging out with us. I'm glad that you mentioned the Southern Rock thing, because it's a label clearly invented again by record executives, isn't it, to sell something a little bit different. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. Rock and roll, the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. Yeah, well, yeah, all from the South. Yeah.
South, man. I mean, it's something in the water down here. I don't know what it is, but there's something in the water, and it's been around here for a while. So
Awesome. We've got Amanda Coombs in the chat with us too, Greg. She's from Canada. We have Leo in the chat joining us from New Jersey. So, we really appreciate the fact that you guys are hanging out with us. We'll probably get Greg back for another show, because we've got a little bit to talk about, and I don't think we're going to get through the agenda. But like I say, guys, if you are interested in following Greg, come back when we finish the show, and I'll attach all his social media links to this video. Go and follow him on Instagram, follow him on any of his other social media platforms, and go and support him. Go and check him out on Spotify as well. So I want to talk about your music on Spotify, Greg. So what was the reason for you to get out there and do this music? Was this something that you always wanted to do, or was it just something that that people pushed you into doing, and you finally did it? What was the reason?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess every kid that gets a guitar at a young age when they're a teenager envisions being a rock star or whatever. But I mean, it was never a very serious thing. I was one of my close friends who co-founded the band with me, Cameron Russell. We've been playing together for a really, really long time and been in and out of all these country bands and everything. And one day we're just sitting there on the balcony after we had left another band, and he was talking about putting together his own band, doing his own thing and singing. And, I was telling him, I've been thinking about doing the same thing. And then it kind of just dawned on us, why don't we do it together? So we formed a band. I mean, he plays keys, I play guitar, he sings half the set, I sing the other half. And that's all where it started right there. And then it just kind of all developed throughout college is really when we did a lot of our writing and a lot of our practicing and rehearsing and putting together 2 studio albums, and finally got the ideal lineup, got some good people. So it's been a blast. I've enjoyed doing it every second.
Awesome. So do you have any plans that you want to share with us and the viewers with your band? Do you have a tour on the cards? Is that something that you guys want to do? Are you going to go out of state, go national, go to Europe? Is that something on the plans?
Yeah, no, for sure. We'd love to get to that stage at some point. We'd like to get out of the state right now. I mean, we've been playing everywhere up and down. If you're not really familiar with Texas, I-35 runs from right in the heart of it, all the way from North Texas to South Texas. And we've been playing everywhere between Dallas and Austin right now, just trying to get our foot in the door and, show our faces and show up every night, put on a good rock show, be loud, and win 1 or 2 fans over every time. So.
Well, to be fair, brother, you're doing it the classic way. You're doing it the way that all the greats did it. They honed their craft. We've read a lot of biographies, haven't we? We've seen a lot of documentaries, and they've all done it the way you and your band are doing it, by gig after gig after gig. Stevie Ray Vaughan, for example, playing for years before he finally broke. So you got to do it, Greg.
You got to get out there. You got to put yourself out there. You got to put in the work. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough game. It definitely is, night after night. And but it's worth it. We got a great group of guys who are playing music we love, and I mean that's really all that matters.
So, but booking where you guys go and play and stuff like that, when we've done shows in the past on the channel, people have found that side of what you guys do interesting too. Is that something that you guys do, or you as the leader of the band, or do you have separate management? Is that something that you just leave solely for them to do?
I mean, we're completely unsigned and we have no management. We're doing everything ourselves. We got lucky enough to record in college for part of a class, so that was actually covered in our tuition, so we didn't have to pay for a dime. I mean, tuition, but we didn't have to pay for anything extra on that, and everything else we've released has all been self-produced. We act as our own booking agent. We email all the venues, call the venues. We do all of our own advertising, our own social media, our own merch. We do it all.
Awesome. We've got in the chat all the way from Brazil joining us too, Greg. We've got Teresa Maria de Souza in the chat, and she is a very, very good friend of the channel. I'm sure she will go and find your link on Spotify and follow you there too. She loves good, authentic rock and roll as well. Andy, thank you for the contribution to the channel too. We really appreciate that. Thanks for supporting the music. That's what we are here for, and this is one of the great things about social media. And Greg and I were talking about this little point in the green room. As music fans, as musicians of whatever degree, whether or not we're 3-chord guitar players or aspiring international acts like Greg and his band are striving to be, we've got a responsibility as musicians to straighten social media out. And we were just talking about comments that people make on YouTube. Some person or some guy or some band's taken the time to put something together and play it their way, and then someone comes along and says that's not how it's done. And Greg said that's exactly what happened to you, bro. So do you want to share that little story?
Yeah. Buddy's some here kept hitting me up. He's like, hey, do a cover of some Stevie Ray Vaughan, some Texas Flood. So I had done a cover of it and put it on Instagram, and someone commented or something, was like, oh, sounds good, you're just using it with too much gain. And I was like, all right, well, thanks for your opinion. I mean, Eddie Van Halen's my influence. There's going to be a little bit of gain on everything I play. But yeah, I mean, what can you expect? People get bored on the internet. You got to find something to do, way to entertain themselves.
Yeah, and that's one thing too that I've learnt running a channel with other co-hosts. We've had, unfortunately, some cheeky comments made by people, and everyone's got an opinion, and that's okay, that's fine. I suppose the point is it's how you come across with your opinion. There's music that I don't particularly like, but when I'm talking to someone who's clearly inspired by that music, Greg, do I put them down? No, I'm celebrating because they're inspired by music, bro. Because I am. The reason why I exist is because, not because of my day job, bro. It's because of music.
For sure.
Yeah, and as Andy said, a little bit of gain never hurt anyone.
No,
yeah.
Just the ears.
Go and check out, Gary Moore, for example. Some of the early stuff that he did in the 1990s. He's got a lot of gain on that stuff, but that's blues.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, bro. I interrupted you. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Dang, go ahead though.
So let's just talk a little bit about gear. I got to ask the question, Stratocasters or Les Pauls, Fenders or Gibsons, bro? Do you have a preference?
Yeah, actually, and it's Gibson for sure. Gibson all the way. My first guitar I ever bought with, my own money outside of like a birthday present for my family or something was a brand new Mexican-made Fender Telecaster, and that's really what I started on. But I mean, Gibson all the way. I love everything about them. The way they look, the way they sound, the way they feel.
Yeah, yeah. Look. I'm a Gibson man too. So it took me a long time. It took me 40 years before I got my first made in America Gibson. It's a 2019 traditional. I've made some changes to it. I've changed the tuners. I've changed the pickups out with some Bethnal Green pickups, and that's one of the great things too, isn't it, Greg? About getting guitars. You can get something, you can keep it stock if you want, but you can change pickups, and is that something that you do? Are you a tone chaser? Is that something that keeps you awake at night?
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, it was keeping me up one night. I was going down a rabbit hole. I had this gig. We were playing in Austin, and I just thought my guitar sounded like shit. I was recording
Yeah,
our entire set to post on YouTube. I usually uh, just watching it back, and I was like, my guitar just doesn't sound good. It's way too thin. There's way too much highs. I just don't like my overdrive, and so I'm just searching and searching. I come across this company called Missing Link Audio, and it's based out of Georgia, and they're all for like Allman Brothers, ZZ Top, Skinner, all that type of tone. And so I started researching them and going through everything, and I ended up contacting them, asking them about what pedal I should get, and the dude actually called me, and we talked for a good bit, and I got one of their pedals, and it's an amazing pedal, and did a couple reviews for them, and they sent me some pickups, some custom wound vintage pickups that I got in my Les Paul now, and some new potentiometers, and I don't know if your 2019 Gibson back there has a control board, but my 21 had a control board in it. So I completely gutted that thing out and did all 50s wiring and grounded everything, and it sounds amazing with these new pickups in it. They're really, really great company.
awesome. So if you want to include their social media links on this video, Greg, pass them on to me. Okay, I'm more than happy to do that for you, because that's what it's about. So if you guys just give me a second, there's a couple of comments in the chat. So if you guys go and follow Greg here, that's Greg's Instagram there in the comments. So Amanda is just saying that she found you on Spotify, so she's followed you, which is good. And yeah, go and follow Greg there and his band.
I've actually
And
got pages on Spotify. I have my solo one on the Gregory Mitchell Wilson that you see down there, but then that's more of a laid back, kind of raw acoustic EP I recorded a couple months ago. The other co-founder of our band, Cameron, he actually produced that for me and recorded it for me, and it's just all one take. Just play through, pick the best one, add some compression and reverb and EQ, and release it. That's kind of how that was. But Jamie's Guns has all our rock and roll stuff.
oh, awesome. So again, everybody, and if you're watching the replay, I promise we'll include those social media links. And yeah, and like I say, I'm going to keep saying it. Go and follow Greg and his band. Go and give them all the support you can, because that's what it's about. If anyone's watching this and you've got your own YouTube channel, go and talk to Greg. Book him. Get him on one of your channels as well. And have a chat to him, because I'm sure Greg would love to get out there and talk more about what he's doing with his band and his music. That's one of the great things. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. That's one of the great things that the internet has given us, as organic fans. We can do this now without having to, like 20 years ago, go through some corporate office to do all this crap, and pay someone to do it, Oh, my gosh.
A lot of rigmarole back then.
Yeah. So I love talking gear. I love talking gear. So look, you're a Gibson man. Oh, that's fantastic. Do you have a preference with amps? I see you've got a beautiful tweed behind you. Uh, is that your preference for amps?
No, it's not. I love that amp. I love it a lot. I use it a lot with my Telecaster, but so I don't know if you can see it, but down here I'll put some pictures or something. But I got a 2x12 Black Star cabinet, and then just a Marshall Origin 50 watt and a 15 watt Egnator, and that's
Wow.
usually for most shows, unless we're doing a little short hour, 45-minute set. I just actually bought a Headrush MX5 that Caleb Rappaport kind of leading me to, and I mean that thing sounds phenomenal too. But I'm more of a Marshall guy.
I'm. Isn't it interesting that you should mention Caleb, because I'm wearing his T-shirt.
Yep.
I'm wearing his Ned Halen. He's a good friend of our channel as well. I didn't know that. I did. And I have the MX5 Headrush too, and the 8-inch cabinet, because he said, whatever you guys do, you got to go out and get this, because you can just get anything you want from this little. I won't swear. This little contraption you can, and it just can. And when I got it though, I have to tell you, I can play Derek and the Dominoes stuff. I can play OU812 Van Halen tones. It's just phenomenal, Greg.
It is a great piece of equipment. I was kind of hesitant on it because
Me too.
But at the end of the day, I don't know. I had this just thing in my head that kept blocking. It was like, no, it's not going to beat a tube amp. Nothing's going to beat a tube amp, which is true to some point. You can't beat a tube amp, but I mean, it's damn close. And I asked him, I was like, don't give me any bullshit. Just, I know you're endorsed by them. Just tell me how it is. And he was like, go listen to our Monsters of Rock show. And I was like, wait,
Yep.
You weren't using the Marshalls behind you? He's like, no, I was just using the MX5. And I was like, sold. Went and ordered it.
Yep. Yeah. And exactly. So there's another guy, Craig Stafko, who is from New York State, and he gets some awesome Van Halen tones as well from that. So I was inspired by them. Look, I got to agree with you. I've got a Blues Breaker. I've got a couple of Fender amps too. And that springiness, that space you get between your strings on your guitar when you're playing through a tube amp is just a little bit there, isn't it? But this modeling stuff now that they've got is so. I'm an old man. Is so much better, Greg, than the crap that they had 15 years ago, or even, I'm going to say it, up to 10 years ago. The modeling stuff they've got now, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, our whole first album that we recorded we didn't use amps on it. I mean, we recorded DI, and it's all amp sims. So our producer had hundreds and hundreds of amps. I'm pretty sure mostly we used a Soldano for our first record. Amp sim, and I mean, it sounds phenomenal. And then our second one, we used the 5153 50 watt, and we just recorded a DI, then we reamped it. But yeah, our second one was a real amp. But I mean, our first one, it was all digital. It sounds phenomenal.
Yeah. And like I say, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's one of the great things though that technology has given us now. I've listened to a lot of albums over the last 3 or 4 years, because of this global thing too that people have put out. Wasn't that long ago you had to go to a studio to do all this kind of stuff, and even our co-host, I'm going to do a shout out to him, Brad Cook. Brad, bro, thank you. He would normally be here doing this with us, but he suffered a stroke a couple of weeks ago, and he's slowly working himself back to health. But he recorded his EP, himself as well. You see, so he took advantage of that technology. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of guys out there who'll go in and they'll record analog. The Black Crows have just done it recently. And that's okay. And Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs, they go out there and do that. That's fine. And I'm sure when you get an opportunity to do that, you're going to do that. But the great thing about digital now is that you can sound authentic really, really quickly and pretty easily.
Oh, very, very easily. You can make a shitty band sound really, really good digitally. But analog's a different game. I want to do a live record really, really bad. I mean, just playing off each other in a room, but I mean, that's a lot of money, a lot of equipment, and a lot of rehearsing that goes into that. But I mean, it's worth it if you make a good record. But there's definitely a warmness to tape that you don't get digitally.
Yeah. And look, I agree with you. And one of the great things about Spotify is that you can listen to it on the go. You've got CDs. We were talking about it a couple of days ago, Greg, on the show. CDs are great. You can buy a CD and you can throw them in. My van still has a CD player. I still know people that have CD players. But then when you go and grab a vinyl record and you drop a vinyl record on and you listen to it, it's like you're hearing again something that's just not there. And look, I'm not a snob. I'll listen to it the best way that I can when I need to.
Yeah, listening to it in my truck with my speakers, with the bass cranked up and everything, and all my EQs, it sounds really really good. But something about dropping a needle and hearing the crackles and just the sound in the room and just the warmthness of it is magical.
Yeah. So what's an average set for you guys when you go out and do a gig? So how long does a set last? Do you have it broken down? Do you do acoustic numbers in your set too? Is there a structure that you follow, or do you just go to a gig and you just play whatever?
Well, we do two different types of gigs. I'll start with the time. Excuse me. As a full band, we've done 4-hour shows before, playing bars that are open till 2 a.m. starting at 10, and playing to 10 people at 2 o'clock, and it's a beating for sure. But most of our shows are 2 to 3 hours long, maybe an hour and a half if we're opening or something. But we have it pretty structured. It's usually 60% originals, maybe 40% covers. We'll cover Skinner, we'll cover Foo Fighters, Van Halen, Warren Haynes, Government Mule stuff. We'll cover Reed Southall, Co Wetzel, Whiskey Myers. We're really broad. We hit Texas country, Texas blues, Southern rock, modern rock, classic rock. We hit really everything in our covers and mix in our originals. But we never break out an acoustic guitar with our full band. I mean, we have the loudest and probably the best drummer in the state of Texas, Chandler Chick. I mean, 4-inch ride and double pedals, and he brings like 6 toms and he beats the shit out of them. So acoustic guitar is not cutting through that mix unless we tell him to play quiet, and he's not going to play quiet. So we'll do acoustic shows, shorter set or shorter time, just like an hour or two with no set, and me and the co-founder will go and just take requests or just pull songs out of our ass all night. We actually did that last night. We're in Austin doing an acoustic show.
Awesome. Cheers, Andy. Andy Carson's saying that he's got to run, so thank you for hanging out with us, Andy. We appreciate it, and we look forward to you jumping on and following us. If you ever want to come on a show, Andy, give me a yell. We'll chat to anybody that's been following us in the chat. Look, I think that's one of the interesting things, isn't it, Greg? You've hit the nail on the head there. If you're playing for people in a bar, you got to play some covers. And you got to do that because that's just where you got to cut your teeth, and you got to make people at least dance so they can drink. And then the beer, the beer has been pumped, and the owners of the bar are really, really happy because they're making lots of money.
Yeah, when you get people dancing and people buying drinks, I mean, the venue owner is definitely happy. But there's an aspect to playing covers that I like and I don't like. There's the aspect, you can play hits that's going to get the crowd going, or you can play one of your songs that are covers that you really, really like and resonates with you, and you can share it with the audience. Or you can go out and play your own music and do your own thing, regardless of what anyone thinks or wants to hear. But I think it was Neil Young that said it, people don't want to hear you play one of your favorite songs. They want to hear you play a song that you wrote. That holds true a little bit, but I mean, you got to work in covers. You got to have the audience moving for sure. But I mean, you can't do all covers though. You gotta have something. Give a little audience something of you. They're gonna like it. No one's gonna turn.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things that you have to you have to navigate, isn't it, when you're in a band? I've played in bar bands over the years, and just jammed with guys, and 90% of the stuff that I've ever played has all been covers, and the odd original stuff, that I was involved in. It was just as an appendage to it. I've never written a song in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm always blown away by guys and girls who do. So that's going to lead me into my next set of questions. So and people love this. People want to know what inspires you to write a song. So I suppose this is where it's going to become a little bit revealing. How much of Greg is he going to share with us, ladies and gentlemen? When you're inspired to write something original, are you tapping into a personal experience? Is this something that you feel that gives you the authenticity, or are you just a guy that can sit there and write about just going to a hamburger joint and buying a burger, and it's just like that? Can you share something with us?
Yeah. I don't know. Each writing situation is a little bit different for me. I mean, I can tap in and write about fictional stories really well, based on things that I've experienced, but create characters with it and, let my imagination run and take it wherever it goes, which I do a lot, or tap into something personal and, unreveal those emotions. But I've never, all the good songs I think I've written have all come out within like 5 minutes. I just sit down and there's a guitar piece and here are the lyrics and it's all out within 5 minutes. And if I sit there and I'm having to work on it and it's been an hour, I'm usually going to scrap it because everything good I've written so far has come out really, really, really quick.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
And I've heard other artists, do that. It's like that. And there's artists like Jason Isbell, whose shirt I'm wearing right now, the greatest lyricist of this generation. I know he just goes over every single word he writes and every single melody and harmony and guitar line. He just goes over it until it's perfect. And I mean, they're a perfect band. I mean, they're one of the best bands out there right now. And if that guy's still on here from Tennessee, I'm sure he knows what I'm talking about. But every artist is different.
Yeah. Look, I find that really, really interesting, and we should talk a little bit more about that because Tom Petty, as an example, when he talks about his songwriting process, Greg, he always talks about how the lyrics, the words, really come quickly. He has no problem putting the words. He's normally, as far as the music side of things are concerned, he may have a couple of chords or there might be a bit of a riff or something like that, and then he'll go and have a chat with Mike Campbell, and then Mike will come in and then just add something and then take that song as far as the music and or the chord progression a little bit more north and until they get a finished song, or vice versa. Mike Campbell will come in with the song music, and then Tom Petty, for example, Refugee, he wrote that in 5 minutes. Those words to Refugee in 5 minutes, and it's like, where do you guys get this from?
David Lee Roth. I mean, he wrote "Jump" in the back of a limo or something like that down the street.
Yeah.
Hey, and it just comes out of nowhere. If you have your antenna up high enough and you receive the signal, I mean, it's there.
Yeah, it blows me away. Yeah, we're talking about Van Halen again. Sammy Hagar too. Went into the studio. Eddie was playing some music, and then they came out with half of 5150. In basically one session. It's like, again, I just, being a music fan and a guitar player, it just never ceases to amaze me personally. That because I can't write a lyric to save myself.
You can.
Oh, maybe. I appreciate the optimism. You're a good man for that. But yeah, I think that's one of the great things about certainly Americans from my perspective. The greatest songwriters that we've had have always come from America. I remember reading recently John Mayer talking about one album that he did. I can't remember, and how he was inspired by the landscape of America when he was on tour.
Mm-hmm.
And just being a Native American himself, he didn't actually realize until he was like on the back of some buses or whatever, actually looking out the window and actually concentrating and realizing, actually, this is a big country.
Yeah, it is. Bringing us back to Texas, I mean, I got a buddy down in Alabama, and he was thinking about moving to Texas, and I was like, you can pick where you want to live here geographically. I said, you want to live in the desert, go to West Texas. If you want to live in the cold, go to North Texas. If you want to live on the beach, go to the coast. And if you want to live in like the deep south with the pine trees, go to East Texas.
Wow.
We've got so many different areas here that you can just pick your spot, and it's completely different geographically. Like no trees to pine trees, and 600 miles difference.
I've got to do a bit of a special shout out too, Greg, to one of the guys that started this channel with me 5 or 6 years ago, Carl van Wilson Vos. Now, he left New Zealand to go to the United States in the early 2000s to try and break into the music industry. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he went to Texas. Greg, he went to Texas. Anyway, he was there, in the States for about 10 years. And we got talking after his experiences, and he said it was heartbreaking for him. I said, what do you mean? He said there was a line of guys down the road, around the block, and then back down around halfway another block of guys who could just do Stevie Ray Vaughan licks. It was just, yeah, it was just, and here's a guy from New Zealand who thought that he was pretty shit hot. And he just, and these were guys just.
Yeah, you got YouTube to blame for that.
Yeah. And he's going, oh, is it true? Is it true that in some parts of Texas, you can go along to bars and, these amps and everything all set up, you can go along and you put a jar down and you can play all night. And so if you're really, really good, you get paid by tips. And if you're crap, you're only going to have a couple of coins. Is that that's what I hear apparently happens in a lot of places in Texas. Is it a true story?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty true. Yeah, I mean, if you're pleasing the audience, you're gonna make a lot more off tips for sure. I mean, we've had nights where we'd be playing in not even a bar, it's more like a restaurant with a bar in it, and we're just on the patio, and we got a metal drummer, and I got back, and we got a buddy who's running a 40-watt combo amp, 2 huge PA speakers, and we're just loud as hell, and they're sitting there trying to eat on a Friday night and talk with their family, and we're just blasting in their ears the entire night. So
I can picture that. Yeah, it's like you picked the wrong place to take your family for Friday night dinner.
It'll be like as we're setting up, and we got the drums laid out, the amps, and we're putting up speakers and everything about the sound check, and someone comes and sits right in front of like these huge speakers, and I'm like, we were actually gonna move that table to the back, so there could be some like 5 to 10 feet between us and the tables, but I'm like, it's gonna get loud, y'all. Just fair warning, which is a really good album. But
Yeah. It's pretty good. Hey, we've got Robert Ranford in the chat joining us. He's another good friend of the channel, a fellow American. Thanks, Robert, for joining us. So we're just hanging out talking to Greg from Texas, talking about his band, music in general, and what inspires him as far as music goes. So a little bit earlier we were talking about how you want to get out of the state clearly, and go on tour. One of the good things about this global thing is that it's slowly opening up. So you know that's an option that's available to you guys now. So where's the next venue? You know, have you guys got that sorted, or is that something you're still working on?
Yeah, we're trying to put together a party type thing for Fourth of July. We call it Russell Fest. We go in this pretty big backyard and invite a bunch of people over. Just bring your own beer and we'll order pizza and snacks for everyone. And we have a guy who's been really Ashley Slay. He's been really good to us. He's an up and coming DJ and he has his own trailer with a stage on it and his own sound system and lights. And he's allowed us to use his stuff for a really good cost. He's been really well, and he's been there with us, and we'll play a big backyard show and everything on 4th of July, but we're thinking about moving it to a legit venue.
Yeah.
Iron out, some food trucks or something like that, and maybe getting a couple other bands on. We were in Austin last week. We'll be in Austin again next weekend, so it's just a lot of Texas shows right now.
Good, and you know, and yeah, and you got to celebrate that because there was a long period of time when obviously you couldn't do that. So the fact that you're out gigging and getting together and connecting with people as an artist and as a band's always going to be a good thing. Isn't it interesting though, you know, that you're following again one of those great rock and roll legacies of organizing gigs and having beer and food there and selling it. You know, Van Halen did it, didn't they? You know, they'd organize these own backyard parties. Again, Tom Petty, you know, and the band before the Heartbreakers, they did the same thing. You know, so you know they were charging tickets to come, charging for the beer, and you know making a bit of money.
We're actually trying to move this Russell Fest 4th of July party because we can't sell tickets or beer because it's out of a backyard and we get shut down pretty quick because it's kind of off the main road. So that wouldn't last too long. So we're trying to find an actual venue so they can make them some money too and we can pack the place for them.
Oh, awesome. That's got to be a priority. Yeah, for sure. Do you guys have a preference to go to from Texas, the East Coast or West Coast? Is there a preference to tour first?
I can't speak for the rest of the band, but if it was me, I'd be going east. I'd be going all throughout, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, making my way up to Memphis, Nashville, Asheville, then Asheville, and all up whole deep South area, and then while we're over there, maybe New York or something, and then cut across over to the West. But I really want to play the 40 Watt in Athens, Georgia. That's one of my favorite bands. Drive-By Truckers played there a lot, and
Yeah. Well, keep us in touch, obviously, and up to play with how you're doing. That because obviously, we'll do what we can to help anything that you guys do, because one of the great things about doing things in business and what we're doing is a business, we're touching base, it's connections. The more connections we can make, the better. And it's quite a nice feeling knowing that when I go to bed at night that I've got a lot of friends that I've never met personally based in America. And it freaks me out, that I know that I've got, some friends in the UK and, friends in Brazil. So that's the least, our channel can do. Our channel was always going to be doing that kind of stuff, Greg.
What y'all are doing is a really good thing.
No, we appreciate it. One of the things that we spoke about, and I haven't done this before, and I don't know if you've done it, but just give me a second while I grab it. Give me a second. So you and I were talking about maybe having a bit of a chit chat about how we would have ranked David Lee Roth albums and Sammy Hagar era Van Halen albums. Now, I've never actually done that before. On our channel, we've gone through and we've discussed every Van Halen album and we've ranked every song on those albums. But as far as ranking the albums from number 1 to number 6, I've never done that. But I did that this morning. Have you done that?
Yeah, it changes. I've got a poll in my head. It changes by one or two every week or so, depending on my mood. But yeah, I've got it pretty engraved in my brain.
Okay, so um, I've got to give obviously the standard warning here because I've had people in the chat pull me up before when I've given rankings on songs or albums in the past, Greg. They said, "Well, you didn't say that on this show." So I said, "Well, lists they always change. So I've got to make that quite clear. This list is my current list at the moment in response to a point that Greg brought up. So, um, what's your number 6 album
So for
for the David Lee Roth era? Yeah, what's your number 6 album?
it's gonna be Diver Down.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, all right. What's your number 5?
Probably 1984.
Oh, oh, oh. Okay. What's your number 4?
So this one here changes really depending on. So if right now, since we're in summer, it would be Women and Children First would be my number 4. But if you would have asked me in winter, it would be Van Halen 2. Because those are kind of both tied for that placing right there. But if it's summer, I'm listening to Beautiful Girls, Dance the Night Away, stuff like that. But if it's winter, there's that warmness and darkness to Women and Children First that I really like in the winter.
What's your next one then? Share your next one with us, Greg.
I mean, that just leaves us Van Halen 1, and then my number 1's Fair Warning.
I kinda, after listening to your music and seeing you on Instagram, I kind of thought that Fair Warning would be your number 1 because I can hear that. I can hear why that would be your number 1 in your music. So, and I mean that sincerely when I say that. We've got some cats that have jumped into the chat. We've got Johnny Bean in here. Hey, Johnny Bean. And also another good friend of the channel, Gretch Zeppelin, in the chat. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Okay, so quickly then. All right, my number 6 is Women and Children First. My number 5 is Diver Down. My number 4 is Van Halen 2. My number 3 is Fair Warning. My number 2 is Van Halen 1. And my number 1 is 1984.
See, I don't know. It's just, I've been a thing with if I hear a song too much, I just start dissociating from it. I heard Jump every single time I turn on. I still love Jump. I mean, that's a great. Yep. But if I'm gonna go listen to a Van Halen song, I'm not gonna go listen to Jump.
Look, I dig it because shit, that's the only song they play on classic rock here too, and Panama,
And why can't I love those 3 songs? That's the only 3 that are ever on the radio. You got a huge catalog here, y'all.
Yeah. We've got DK Wilson in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. I'll tell you the reason why I picked 1984, and it's not anything to do with the music. I picked it because it was what this band could have been at that time with this album with David Lee Roth had they recorded another album. They could have, gone on and done something mind-blowing. But they went and did something mind-blowing with someone else.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on the either side of the fence of Sammy or Dave or that's a huge argument on Facebook right there. You can really stir some shit up if you go and talk shit about either one in that Van Halen group chat on Facebook. You're gonna get a lot of comments.
Unfortunately, that is one of the bad things about my. It's a negative thing about Van Halen fans, and we speak about this a few times on the channel, Greg. It's changed a little bit with Eddie passing. I think the the line in the sand isn't as deep as it was when Eddie was alive. But I like sharing this story. I got a new vehicle and I had 3 CDs in my vehicle, and they were all Sammy era CDs. And like a lot of people, I took a photograph of my CDs, what I'm listening to, and I put them on this Facebook group. And it was the first time I'd ever done it, on this Van Halen group, on this Facebook group. And then I went and checked about 3 hours later, and I couldn't believe all these comments I got from these guys just calling me, like really personal names, because I'd posted these 3 Sammy Hagar posts on a Van, and I kind of scratched my head and realized that's when I realized, oh my gosh, wow. So here in New Zealand, it's not quite died in the sand, as far as the Roth era versus the Sammy era. Personally, and on this channel, we don't get into that argument anyway. We love Van Halen because of Eddie, and I think that's the way it should be. But kind of scratch. I got to scratch my head when I see these guys going on about that. I think it's hilarious, Greg.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been one of those guys too. But I mean, so when I was a kid, like I said, I had in my dad's truck going to kindergarten. It was best of both worlds. So it had, all the
Everything.
Hits, the hits off the other 4. And as a kid, I was more keen to David Lee Roth, because it was just the Brown sound, on all the records and everything. But once, like we were talking about, once I started actually writing lyrics and writing melodies and singing, I actually geared myself more towards Sammy. So now if I had to pick one, it would be Sammy any day of the week. I mean, I think David Lee Roth is the greatest frontman to ever walk the face of the earth, and no one can even come close to touching him. And I mean, I listen to Gary Sharon too. I mean,
yep.
I love.
Yep.
It took me a minute to realize what he was doing, but I mean, it's just Eddie's solo album pretty much with a different singer. I mean, Eddie played bass on most of it. That was also the first album they ever used Pro Tools on. So there was a bunch of different things that went into that album.
Yeah. Look, and I agree with you. So I'm old enough to get into Van Halen when it was David Lee Roth. Around Diver Down, Fair Warning, around that era. My friends and I at high school, we were listening to these albums, and it was like, wow, and then after 84, this band just ceasing to exist and being like really, really sad. And you got to remember, we didn't have the internet back then, so nobody knew what the hell was going on. We didn't know what was going on, bro. It was just like, oh, okay, so this band's over. Then all of a sudden, you have the single, on with this guy called Sammy Hagar, and it's like, oh, okay, all right. So Van Halen, this guy, this guitar player who we all loved and adored, is in a new band, or got this band going. And so we got 5150, and I've got to tell you, Greg, I was blown away by that album. It just, and my friends, we were just going, wow, because the guitaring had changed and it was so cool. So, I loved it. And then again, when Sammy left or got booted, whatever version of the story you want to take, and then when they said Gary Sharon was coming, and I got to be honest with you, and we've said this before on this channel, I turned around and said to my friends, I said, I don't know how this is going to work.
I mean, it took like Year to the Day and Fire in the Hole, songs like that. It took me listening to those songs probably 7 or 8 times to be like, oh, okay. And then really, I mean, I like Josephino, oddly enough. Josephino was my first real song off Van Halen 3 that I really connected with. And then Without You, I mean, that's just a masterpiece of a guitar song right there. But there's something about, I really grew up rebelling against the high school in my parking lot, in high school and everything, but just rolling through with your windows down, blasting like Balanced or Fair Warning or something through your speakers. And everyone's like, what is he listening to? I'm like, good music. That's what I'm listening to. And I'm glad you don't listen to it either. It's when everyone else is listening to it, I kind of step back. I'm like, I want to listen to something that no one else is listening to. I kind of want to rebel a little bit, and that's why I love Van Halen so much. I knew one other person in my high school who listened to Van Halen, and I'm in a band with him now. We formed a band.
Oh, well, it was meant to be. That's destiny. It was meant to be, bro. But look, I got to agree with you. I and this is something that people have said on our channel before, and it's something that I want to share with you. So, Van Halen 3, when we first ranked that, I never gave it high marks when each song. But then I spoke to a lot of people on the channel over the last couple of years, Greg, and I learnt a little bit more about the album. I learnt more about what was happening behind this album, what Eddie wanted to achieve with this album. So that had this intellectual thing happen within me. So I went and I listened to that album again with a different mindset, and isn't that amazing how you can do that? So you can be completely familiar with this album, but when you hear something, a backstory to it, you go and listen to it and you go, I get it now. So when you said that this was Eddie's solo album, see, I didn't know that at the time, but when that point was drawn to me, I went, So I went and listened, and now I get it, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, putting puzzle pieces together, just hearing what he did on that, and just it's just stuff he had in his brain throughout the other two singers. And I really don't know. I don't know much about that album, but I do know, I mean, that is one of the hardest guitar riffs you're going to hear, and that is all in, like, if you want to learn something hard by Eddie, go learn something on Van Halen 3.
Sure. And we've had some guitar players on here that have said exactly what you've said. Okay, so while we're on the topic of Sammy, so I'll be keen. Give me a list of your Sammy. Your Sammy. What's your number 4, number 3, number 2, and number 1 of Sammy era albums?
Hard, because I mean, I'm really big on Sammy. I love The Circle. I mean, I love Montrose. I love his solo career. I love everything Sammy does. So it's really, really, really hard for me to pick Sammy records. But if we're talking 4, I'm probably gonna have to go with OU812 just because the way it's mixed. I hate the way it's mixed. There's no low end in it. Then after that, it's really my number 1 changes kind of like with the seasons. I was saying on, Van Halen 2 and Women and Children first, but it flip flops with number 1, 5150 or Fuck, and then Balance right after.
Well, you and I are pretty much on the ball there because I've got my number 4, OU812, number 3, Carnal Knowledge, number 2 is 5150, and my number 1 is Balance.
Really, really dark record, and I like that a lot. Sometimes it's like the Seventh Seal. That song just, God, dude, that guitar riff is just monstrous.
Yeah. I look. I have to agree with you. The way that he had that wet dry wet rig working back then, with the delays, it was just fantastic. It was, and again, I hate to say this, Greg, but we speak about this often on Van Halen shows on this channel. When this album dropped to us, it was in the middle, right smack bang in the middle of, again, this label that record executives created called grunge, and I hate that label, but I'm going to say it, and this album couldn't have sounded so different. So when you said that you were driving through listening to Van Halen because no one else was listening to it, if you were listening to this in 1995, you weren't listening to anything that anyone else was listening to. It was just like, what is this? But look, I agree with you. I think this album has some sophistication in lyrics, some sophistication in tones. That's fantastic. And again, I've got to say this to you, Greg. It's like what what this band could have done if they kept Sammy and recorded another album after this album. What could have happened?
I think you kind of hear it on Jesus, it's in Twister, Humans Being.
Yeah.
I mean that was Humans Being is kind of close to 5153 guitar wise. So I mean it would have definitely been heavier. That's something on too on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge is how much Eddie had used his wah pedal. I mean,
Yeah.
Alice broke on this scene, and I mean, hell, they went on tour with Van Halen for like half a tour in the early '90s to promote for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, and Jerry Cantrell was using a lot of wah, and instead of battling with them, Eddie started using wah too. Music was changing, and just hearing each album and going back and that's one thing I did after he passed. I went and dissected each album and listened to them in order, and just saw how the music and the dynamics and the vibe changed on each record.
Awesome. Hey, I've got to do a special shout out, Greg. We've got Nelson Rodriguez in the chat, another very, very good friend of the channel joining us. Another American guy. Fantastic. Thank you, bro, for jumping in. So we're just hanging out. We're talking music with Greg from Texas. Nelson, if you want to come back and follow Greg's links, I'll attach them to this video. Go and follow him. He's on Spotify as well. He's got an Instagram account. Go and support him there, guys. Look, I have to agree with you. I think the wah, the way that Eddie was using the wah on Carnal Knowledge and Balance was unlike anybody else. It was just this gentleness, this gentleness that was there. It was nothing abrasive. There was no like grinding wah. It was no heavy wah. It was just the way that it just fitted in with that guitar tone that he had. It's just about perfect, Greg.
Yeah, I think from a playing standpoint, he does his sweeps with his foot as he's going into bends, and it just changes the pitch as he's changing the pitch with his hands, and just the way it went together. And he had that D tune too that he was using on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and Balance that just went really, really good with the wah pedal.
Yeah, and look, Greg has mentioned something there that's really, really interesting, guys. So he got a D tune going, and he's doing bends and also using his forward rows as well as the wah in conjunction. Most guys like me would just be using your guitar and then you use your wah, but he's using an effect or effects in conjunction with his bends and tapping and the tremolo. Some serious thought went into what he was trying to achieve there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Pound Cake is just, I feel like, is a great example of all that, because I mean they had the drill in the intro, and then you have the wall section right before the solo, and then you have like the whole solo with that D-tune vibe going on. That's such a good song. It's just a really, really good album.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Pound Cake, because I remember when that album dropped, and I was working with this guy who was a Van Halen nut too, and we were trying to work out what is it? How was he getting that? Got to be a wah, has to be. Got it. Somehow he's doing that with a wah, but it's not really a wah. And then obviously, we here in New Zealand, we were so back in the dark ages back then, we didn't have videos of Van Halen back then. It took a while. It wasn't until guitar magazines came out, Greg, where guys were asking Eddie about what he was doing, and then it was using a drill. Okay, now we get it. Yeah, that makes sense. But I never worked that out.
Oh yeah, no one would have known unless you asked
him. Yeah. Guys in the chat, do you guys have any questions for Greg? I haven't asked you guys that. Halen, Gretch, Zeppelin, Nelson, Robert, if you guys have any questions for Greg, this might be the best time to throw them in. I'm going to probably book Greg in for another show when Brad, my co-host Brad, is going to be up and doing a few more shows. I'm sure Brad would love to have some time with you too, Greg, in the future.
Well, here, before we go, I know we're kind of reaching the end. Let me show you two guitars real quick.
Mate, go and grab them. Please do.
So, this first one, I don't think I really have to explain what this one is.
Oh, my Lord.
So, story about this one, I was telling you about that. My first guitar I ever bought with my own money was that Telecaster. So, it was about 2 years after I had it, I saw this on Facebook Marketplace, and I couldn't turn it down. Messaged the guy, how much do you want? It was too much. And I was like, well, could I trade you a Telecaster for it? He was kind of hesitant, and I was like, Telecaster and $50. And he was like, that'll work. So I took an advance at work, got off work early, drove 2 hours, and went and picked this thing up. And I love this guitar. You can do anything with it. I beat the hell out of it every night. It never goes out of tune. I can hold it by the Floyd Rose, and it'll be a little sharp or a little flat. I've had two minor problems with it. The whammy bar connection was kind of a little loose, so I ended up just JB welding it, and it held and it worked. But after probably about a year and a half of having it, and I would restring it, I'd be stretching the strings, they would pop out of the saddle down here, and the blocks would fly out and go everywhere. So I'd have to keep blocks, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it, so I took it to my tech. He couldn't figure it out either, and he was like, well, I was using 10s. It wasn't like I was using a super thin string or anything, but he came up with a solution of soldering the bottom of the strings and putting it in there, and then once you tighten it down, it flattens it, and it's pinched between the wall and the block.
Yep.
And that's from flying out. And I did that when I changed my strings. If you work on Floyd Roses, it's already a process to change the strings, and that just added another 15 or 20, which should be unnecessary minutes, but it was weird. I don't know why it was happening. Then one day I just got lazy and was like, I'm not going to do it, and it quit doing it. But
wow,
the only problems, it's all rusted to shit down here, but yeah, I beat the crap out of this guitar every single night, and it's held up, and it's one of my favorite guitars, and don't take it out as much anymore, but yeah, you can't beat it. You can't beat it at all. But that's one I wanted to show you.
Awesome. Hey, Helen. See you later, Teresa. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you this evening.
And then, speaking of Les Paul, my 21 tribute. This is my number one right here. I play this for the majority of our set, unless we're playing something a little bit harder off our most recent album. I'll use the Wolfgang on, but I love gold tops, but
yeah,
for some reason they've kind of always looked a little too matte and bland to me. So this satin, not honey, it's a satin honeyburst. It's real similar to a gold top, but there's still some texture in the wood in it.
Sure.
It looks great. I love the way it plays. Like I was saying earlier, it's 2 custom wound MLA missing link audio pickups in here, and I pair that with one of their pedals I have, and it's just a phenomenal, ungodly tone. We ripped out the control board in it too, did all 50s wiring, grounded everything, so put a new potentiometer in it, and it sounds really good. This is my baby girl right here.
I look. What have I done there? Those are beautiful guitars, and I'm glad you mentioned the 50s wiring, because I did the same with this too here. So when I ordered my Bethnal Green pickups from the UK, I got a 50s wired loom as well with capacitors. So that's wired in the 50s way as well too. So and I've got to tell you guys, one of the great things, and Greg might back me up here, one of the great things is you can get a guitar, it can sound great, spend a little bit of money to make it sound a little bit more for what you want. So something that you want to hear, because I've got that Peter Green, early British blues kind of stuff in my mind, Greg, and I wasn't getting it from the burst buckers. As much as they're great pickups, I just wasn't getting it. So I had to, obviously, make some changes. So what was a plank of wood now is a guitar for me, and I suppose that's a little bit like you, what you've done with your Les Paul too. You've changed some things. What I'd like you to do for me, bro, please, is give me the links for those pickups and that pedal, and so we can attach them to this video, and let those guys know that you've done that too, because I'm sure they'll be happy that you've done that. So just reach out to them and say, look, yeah, only if you want to, but we're happy to do that.
Oh yeah, they know I'm here. They know I'm doing this. I do some work with them, so they're a great company. They are really really helpful. Like I mean, he had a 30-minute conversation. Can you see me, by the way? I can't see myself.
No, we can see you, bro. Trust me. If I couldn't see you, yep, we can see you.
But yeah, he just had like a 30-minute conversation with me. Asked me, like, what tone are you going for? What guitar are you using? What amps are you using? What pedals are you using? What string gauge are you using? Asked me like 1,000 questions.
Wow.
And talked for a minute, and he was like, all right, this is what you need. And I mean, I got it, and it was exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah. And see, and this is the key, ladies and gentlemen, that you guys have to understand. So you gotta go somewhere, and pay for something a little bit more than what you would normally do to get that kind of service, because that 30-minute phone call that Greg had, he's having that with another guitar player, with a tech guy who can understand exactly what he's saying, which is what we do. It's like when you go and watch a gear review or something like that. It's not necessarily what it's sounding like, because generally speaking, it's sounding like shit because it's not coming through YouTube very, very well. You're listening to how Greg is explaining the pedal, and it's okay. So Greg's saying it cuts out the mids, but it boosts the highs. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so that's the pedal I want. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's just finding the tone that's in your head and then getting it through the speakers in your cabinet. That's the big thing right there. And there's lots of companies out there, and I mean, MLA has been a great one, and a lot of their stuff is, I believe they make it all, or a lot of their stuff, by hand. So you can pay to get your pedals hand wired, and some of their stuff they make it as they're shipping it out. So there's a couple weeks delay. It's not like Boss or MXR where they're mass producing everything and sending hundreds each Guitar Center. This company's making it for you, and they're shipping it out to you. And I mean, they come in these great boxes right here, and I got a free picks and a truss rod cover too. So it was great. I really enjoyed the experience.
That's brilliant, and that's what it's about, because again, that's one of the things that we talk about on this channel, and Brad, one of my co-hosts, mentions that he tries to support some of the amp manufacturers and repairers and adjustment guys and pedal guys in the state. I'll start again, in Australia. Because you're just getting that little bit of attention to detail that you wouldn't necessarily get from out of a box. And I dig that. I get that, because I did that exactly with my Les Paul. I wanted something that was dedicated to what I was looking for. And doesn't mean that we're snobs or anything like that. It's just that that's necessarily where you have to go if you want to get that thing that's in your head out. You're going to have to generally pay to have it made to suit your what you're looking for.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I'll be glad to put their link on the channel. It's about supporting those boutique companies too, guys. That's another key thing too as a guitar player. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but go and look locally for someone, a luthier or somebody, or an amp manufacturer. Go and try and find somebody a little bit close to where you live, because this global thing has made us rethink how we do things now. So buy local, support local.
Oh yeah, the guy who actually ripped out the control board for my guitar, he lives half a mile down the road from me. And
Wow.
I was like, called him and told him, what I needed done. I can do pretty much any body work or any hardware work, but once we get into electronics, I'd rather not mess anything up. So I just asked him about it. And he was like, "Yep, nope, I can do it." And I brought it over, and you got it working for me.
Awesome. Well, look, bro, I'm going to ask you to say the final words. It's been a pleasure for our channel to hang out with you, Greg, and talk about where you've come from. Talk Van Halen with you and a bit of gear. I really appreciate you sharing with us some of your insights and your guitars. This is what our community is about, extend your social media communities, guys. Get out there and touch base and make connections, just like Greg and I, how we did it. And we've connected now we've got a connection with what we want to achieve here on our channel, with what he wants to do with his band. So we're going to get Greg back in about another 4, maybe 5 weeks, and he can come and hang out with Brad. He'll have another set of questions to ask you. But if you got another couple of hours in 4 or 5 weeks' time, we'd love to have you back with us, Greg.
Yeah, this has been great. Enjoyed this. It was a good talk with you, man. I'm down to talk Van Halen any day of the week, any time of the week. I mean, you can call me at 2 in the morning and be like, "Hey, let's talk about Van Halen or something," or I'd be like, "All right, let's go."
What we'll do is we'll get you on a Van Halen show, on a 5150 show. Well, because we often talk about subjects and topics. So when we nail something specifically, I'll share that with you. And if you want to come on as a guest host and share something that we're going to talk about, I've got a couple of things that we're discussing now with Brad and Hoss about some future shows coming up. So I'll share those with you. If you want to jump on and talk Van Halen with us, you're more than welcome. Look, we don't own Van Halen. We're just fans, guys, just getting together, organic fans. We're not saying that we know it all when it comes to Van Halen. There's always going to be, it never ceases to amaze me, Greg. There's another American guy that we've touched base with. He's a great friend of the channel, a guy called Keith Campbell, who's seen Van Halen 36 times. Fruitcake Tony, another friend of our channel who's got his own show going, he's seen Van Halen 42 times. Yeah. And what Keith Campbell knows about Van Halen, I'm going, wow, how do these guys know? Yeah. You think you know it, it all, and then you meet someone, don't you? And it's like, I know jack shit.
You hear someone talking about it on one of these things, and you learn something.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it's about. It's about learning. It's about sharing the experience. And like I said to you before, when I went and listened to Van Halen 3 after having conversations with guys here on the channel, my appreciation of that album changed remarkably, because I was influenced by things that I didn't know, which had in turn an effect on how you went and listened to something. Off topic, we got a question in here by Steve G. Off topic, do you have footage of Simon Hosford's tribute show? Go to our channel, and you'll see that we've put up a debrief for Hoss's Corner Bar gig in about 5 days' time. If you hit the notification for that show, we'll give you some updates. Hoss had that gig professionally video recorded and taped as well. So he'll make an announcement on how he's going to release that, if you guys are interested. So Robert Redford is saying, thanks for coming on, Gregory. Nelson Rodriguez is saying the same thing too. So, we've got some good followers of our channel here, bro. I'm sure they'll follow you and support you with your endeavors. We're going to get Greg back, guys. So remember that. He's coming back. I'm going to say thank you for hanging out with us, and I'm going to give the last word to Greg, and we'll catch you guys later.
Well, thank you for having me, man. I mean, this has been great. It's been a good talk. I love talking Van Halen, love talking music, love talking guitars. Just go follow Jamie's Guns. Go follow me on Instagram at GNW Music, and go check out Missing Link Audio because they got some great products.
Awesome, bro. All right, good luck. God bless everybody. See you soon.
Thank you, brother.